Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an anime story podcast. My name is the Big Bad Moon. Right over here on the right is Hound 3D, and just below me is Bad Strategy. We're your hosts of an anime story podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about A Place Further Than the Universe. That's right. It's a slice of life anime about four young girls who are going to Antarctica. Let me real quick just check my sound. Slice of life anime? I think it is. How are you doing today, Helen?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoyed the snow this morning. It was like a full blizzard, and then it all melted. And then I was sad. Doing pretty good.
Aw. Hey, well that sounds like a pretty good day to me. I worked my final night shift today, and I'm done.
Yay.
That's great.
Go relax.
I worked a number of 12 midnight shifts to 11 in the morning shifts this week, and I was very tired. Yes. Bad Strategy, how you doing?
I am good. Everything's wonderful. We should discuss Best Girl.
Oh, well, we'll do that later. Once we've had a few minutes to kind of get into the anime.
It's fair.
A Place Further Than the Universe. So, this is a story about four young girls who decide they want to go to Antarctica on an expedition that is leaving to go on Antarctica, and they do it. They go to Antarctica. And they experience the joy of friendship on the way.
And
Helen, what do you think of A Place Further Than the Universe?
I really enjoyed the music.
the music was catchy.
It was. They had pretty catchy music. I enjoyed it.
It was interesting. I thought that part was really nicely done. Now that you talked about the hard light, I kind of agree with the artistic style. Like,
It feels
I
like a
didn't know
cutout,
what
right?
was off, but
Mhm.
I felt that. Yes.
It's so the darker the background is, the more that white hard light contrasts it, and the more the character feels as if they're not a part of the scene. They feel as if they were cut and pasted over top of another scene, and like they're not in the environment. It's interesting because it is kind of like adding an outline to the character, but it is done in a stylized way that the outline is on the character and it's not all the way around. It is their hair, not their neck, their shoulders and arms, and it changes.
For anybody who may very well be watching that doesn't understand artsy fartsy terms like hard light, you'll look on my forehead and you'll see a shiny area right here. That is hard light. That is the direct reflection of the light that's
It is
coming off
the
the
area
light.
of Moon's forehead that has such directly reflected light that it appears as white.
Yes. So that's hard light. So this anime, and you do that to show the direction a light's coming from. So like, if I was
going
this way, the hard light's kind of on that side of my head. If I'm over here, hard light's on that side of my head. So you can tell the light's right above me. And based on the angle of my head, you're going to see different types of hard light. So this is, from an artistic perspective, when you're drawing somebody and you have a light source somewhere, you will usually put a little bit of hard light on a character, in around their hair or their on bones, whatever portion of their body is a little bit reflective and is facing towards the light.
I am a peak example because I am pale as the grave, so you can see the light hitting my arm.
You just completely light up like a glow stick. So
I glow
not a good
like
example.
a vampire.
Exactly. Something that Place Further Than the Universe does is they have hard light all around the characters. So like they have hard light around the top of their head and the side of their head and their shoulders and their elbows and their chins and like all over. And so it looks like they're in a big light room. And so it kind of makes them pop out from the scene. It's an artistic choice. I don't like it. I think
I would
a weird
say
use
that
of hard light.
I would say that it's not. I would say that it's not actually hard light, but it looks like hard light. I think it's a stylized version of doing an outline, but they don't want to have an outline.
I think it is. I think it is hard light, but I think it's just like lots of hard light.
Yeah, it's it's clearly an intentional decision, and the intensity of the hard light we see on the characters isn't reflected over the rest of the characters. It
Mm-hmm.
makes them contrast the scenes, and if you look at the environments, this anime has what I would say are standard, very good looking, semi-realistic environments in a lot of parts of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so one of the big issues in anime is having characters contrast environments. The characters look abstracted and the environments look realistic. And the problem with adding this outlining hard light is that it creates a barrier between the character and the environment when the styles are already different. If you watch even classic, like really really well-known, really good animes, there are moments where you can be like, that door in the background is going to be animated and is going to open because it's different from the rest of the
Yeah.
environment
Mm-hmm.
around it. They
Yep.
drew it differently because it's not an environmental piece. They did lower detail
They do it differently because it was drawn later on as well.
later on. Yeah.
I think the problem that I have is I actually do in some ways like the hard light, and
Yeah.
then in other ways I felt like it was really jarring and kind of distracted from the story.
I think it might work better in a manga. I think it's more jarring when there's animation going on.
Yeah.
In a manga, you want each frame to pop, and maybe you want the characters to pop out of the frame as well. So the characters will pop out more because of that use of hard light. So I would say in a manga it probably achieves its goal more so. It is a
Well,
stylistic thing I would not necessarily do myself.
I also don't know if they do that in the manga, so
That's fair.
it's an interesting
Fair.
thing.
I haven't checked.
It's an artistic choice. You might like it, might not like it. I didn't particularly like it. It was a little bit distracting to me. I'm also an artsy fartsy person, so I see that I'm like, that's weird. Why is there a hard light all around the person? It doesn't make any
But
sense.
I have to say, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm pretty artsy fartsy too, and you know, when I first played Borderlands, like that jarred me,
That's true.
and I couldn't play it for a while, and now I love it.
And it's that's one of those things where you might not be used to it. Certainly, it's not a thing. Like I'm also not currently used to Borderlands, but it's a style. It's a thing. It's an artistic choice that they made. You like it, you don't like it. Maybe you could get used to it. Now, being that there's one season of this show, maybe getting used to it is, you have to do it fast. But
Or watch it at a much lower speed, so you have
yes,
more time
which
to
could
acclimate.
be very funny.
I don't think Bad would go for that.
I don't think
Or
so either.
Moon. No.
Yeah. No, I don't think he would.
Times like 10.
Times
Speed.
10.
Times his speed. Yeah, we could do that. So as far as the art goes, otherwise I actually like the art. It's not bad. It's nice. I thought the characters were all relatively distinct, despite them being a bunch of 15 to 16-year-old girls.
I'm pretty sure it was 16 to 17,
I'm
but
pretty
we
sure
can
that's not the
agree
case.
to disagree on this matter.
We do have common ground here. I'm gonna
We
assume
do.
they're. I'm gonna assume they're all 16.
Very well. I shall assume they're all 16.
Cool.
All right. So this anime,
Mhm.
it was pitched to me as an inspirational anime about not letting life pass you by and about getting up and doing what you want to do and not allowing your own natural tendency to want to be lazy and kind of a shit to get in the way of you doing what you need to do and what you want to do.
Hmm.
I think it was only really that kind of in the first half. It had a little bit of that in the first
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? How was this anime pitched to you? Did I pitch this anime to you? Did I give an explanation? I don't recall. What were your thoughts going in?
So the way I understood it was that there were going to be going into it. 4 girls were going to decide they wanted to go to Antarctica, and they were going to go on an expedition to Antarctica. It turned out to be a little bit different. I mean, I got the gist of it. The first kind of half of the show is them trying to get onto this expedition that's going to Antarctica. I don't know why going into I thought that they were just gonna
Be in Antarctica?
someone's gonna take them to Antarctica and like for no reason. Like, hey, yeah, we'll take you to Antarctica. I liked the first half of the show a lot more because I thought that
Mandy,
was interesting.
Mandy, what did you hear about it before watching? Was it pitched to you? Did
So
you hear stuff?
I actually saw an AMV with it, and the AMV was really awesome, and it kind of translated exactly what you said, like getting out of your comfort zone and just going and doing something. And yeah, and so the anime was like really like, or not the anime, but the AMV was really intense. I was like, oh, this looks awesome. And like I still thought it was pretty good, but not the way the AMV pitched it.
Yeah. No, you can make they can make things look really good in an AMV or a trailer. Like,
Yeah.
They made it look good.
How would either of you guys pitch this? How would you pitch it if you were going to give it to someone, and who would you recommend to watch it? Would you?
Somebody who likes slice of life, um, who is okay with things happening that may not be real, like passport losing.
that's true.
You
Um,
know, like you would tell somebody, not tell anybody.
If you lose your passport, step one, tell everybody.
Immediately.
Step two,
I would
figure
tell
out what you
everyone.
do. They did step two. They figured out what to do when you lose your passport, which is how you can get another one. I think like step three is have other people check their belongings. And step four is retrace your steps and go back over everything and see if you can find where you lost it.
Oh, and step 5 is don't spend $8,000 on airplane tickets.
That is step five.
That's a lot of money on airplane
Lot
That's
tickets.
a
of
lot
money.
of money. And like, yeah, don't do that. That's a bad idea. But yeah, okay. So this is getting at actually. I think if we're gonna talk about, so we're gonna move into the what I think is the big problem space in this show. Now, I enjoyed this show. I don't have any big problems with this show. There's nothing like stupendously egregious that just frustrated the hell out of me. It was fun, you know. The first half was better than the second half, I thought. So I think one of the biggest problems was that the first half of the show was really interesting because you have these characters that are meeting each other, and they're trying to figure out how to get to Antarctica. So they're coming up with little schemes, and they're trying to save up money, and they're trying to talk to these people, and they're trying to solve this problem because their goal is to get to Antarctica. And there are all these things in the way. That was interesting. Then they get on to the expedition, and the second half of the show is them being on a boat or being in Australia, waiting to go to the boat, then being on the boat, then being in Antarctica, then being on the station, and the only thing that's happening during that time is they're having these small personal problems where they have conflicts with each other because of misunderstandings or lack of communication. And they have little things like they lose their passports and they don't tell anybody. Or and there's really no like nobody's really guided. They're just like they're not self-guided. They're just kind of there and they're waiting for the boat to get there. And they're waiting for the whatever to happen.
The rain to rain and the snow to snow.
All right, Bad. What do you want?
So, yes, okay, there's that. All their issues are kind of trivial, interpersonal issues that aren't really significant, that
With
aren't a
no
big
real
deal.
antagonist.
Yeah, with no. Also, there is one issue in particular I would like to mention in the latter half of the show that I think was handled questionably. So, one of the characters there is like they're like, I have personal issues and I'm frustrated and I'm not gonna tell my friends. And so, their friend is like, they're upset and they're frustrated and they're not talking to me. So the answer to the problem is not to try to like communicate with them and understand when they tell me no that it means that they just want to deal with it by themselves, but is rather to snoop through their email and personals and learn what I can about them. And then afterwards be like, you should have told us, you are clearly in the wrong. That's a terrible thing to do. If your friend breaks into your computer and looks at your emails and then gets upset with you for not telling them about the things that upset them,
Mm-hmm.
you're not the one at fault there.
So
That's a bad message to convey.
so this is the problem that I have with the second half of the show is that there is no conflict. There's no real conflict happening. So they're trying to create these little bits of conflict that don't really have any like foundation to them, because they're quick, like single episode conflicts that don't have lots of substance behind them. They're just things that can happen for the episode, that can create some kind of misunderstanding so that people can come to a head and then be happy again. There's no underlying, thing to it. So like,
And also that's a terrible message.
it is also a terrible message.
Like, I don't know. What do you think, Helen?
I have a lot of thoughts. Just like I have to.
But
I personally think that if anyone
Sorry, I
tells
had to blow
you,
my nose.
yeah, I personally think that if anyone tells you you're in the wrong for not wanting to share your problems with other people, and that they are in the right for snooping through your shit, that is that's just no.
so
Enough.
Helen,
No.
Funny enough, this
Yeah.
has happened to
Uh-huh.
somebody I know in real life.
oh yeah,
Yeah, and they thought that they were in. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny.
yeah.
It's ironic.
Don't
Does happen.
if someone doesn't want you to deal
I'm serious.
Yeah.
And they swear they were in the right.
to break into a computer and look through stuff, yeah, don't do that. That's not.
It's not cool.
Yeah,
It's a bad
And
message.
it's a bad message to send. Now,
But it does happen.
Yeah, like if you want to deal with your problems yourself and not tell people, you can do that. That's not bad. It's like
so
it's good to share your problems and stuff, but
so aside from it being kind of a bad message or what have you, it's just like this. It's not a substantive conflict.
No.
Yeah.
So like conflict should really come from the characters' like deep motivations, and the conflict should be when that like the
It
character.
doesn't give it a jumping point. It doesn't give it a move forward. It becomes
well-
too muddy and unspecific.
part of the
Yeah.
issue I would say is that maybe some of the pre-Antarctic story points I'd have to rewatch. Maybe not though.
Mhm.
But certainly all of the story points after heading towards Antarctica are issues where the characters are not actively pursuing their motivations, right? They're not
Mhm.
moving towards anything. They're there for the journey. They're all along for the ride and they're getting carried to their destination, not actively advancing towards it.
Right.
So no one's pursuing their motivations, and there are no conflicting motivations. There's no points of natural tension emerging from the king trying to rule the country justly and his advisor with feeling that he needs more of a steely fist to rule the
Mhm.
country. There's nothing naturally conflicting, and so the
Right.
characters just kind of they're just kind of happening. The story's happening to the characters at that point,
Mhm.
and the characters aren't
Yeah.
happening to the
No,
story.
yeah, and that's kind of a
Well,
classic thing that happens.
And that brings you out of the moment too. Then
Mhm.
it doesn't run moment to moment. Then you're just kind of like, okay, are we
Mhm.
going somewhere?
Yeah,
Like,
you're kind of waiting. You're just watching and waiting for the whatever the mundane thing is to be over, so that you can get to whatever the next big thing is going to be. Because you're just kind of waiting for that little stuff to
Yeah.
get to run its course.
This is common in slice of life, though, admittedly, but part of the reason it might be common in slice of life is because things that don't fit into other genres tend to get shoved into slice of life.
Mhm.
What do you guys think of the slice of life genre.
I think slice of
Thoughts?
life's a great genre. I think it's vague, but I have no problem
Certainly.
with it. I don't think there's very many good slice of life things, but I also don't think there's very many good anythings. Because I'm a horrible, Grinch. But
I feel like a Grinch.
No, I
uh,
mean that's the approach I take. Is
mm,
if you want something that's good, you need to make. If you want people to make good stuff, you need to get lots and lots and lots of people making stuff,
mm,
because after eventually something good will emerge from the
yeah,
piles of
yeah. And
things.
so this is the thing that I always think is that I always say it's that you're gonna have people are gonna make movies, people are gonna make anime, people are gonna write books and do that, and the vast majority of it it's gonna be garbage. It's gonna be hot garbage, and a little bit of it is going to be good. Is going to be really great, really wonderful, well done stuff, and you increase the amount of stuff that people make, the ratio is going to stay the same. You're going to get a lot of garbage, and you're going to get a little bit of good stuff, but there's going to be more good stuff because there's more stuff overall. So finding that, and I'm not saying that everything is like completely worthless, and you should never watch it. There's some like decent shows that are all right. Um,
I just think you're a really big cynic.
I, that is not untrue. Um,
And garbage is how you perceive it. One person's garbage is another person's treasure.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And so I'm also obviously, I think I'm being a little bit dramatic. Everything is not garbage, but
Just to your standards.
just to my very high standards, everything is just garbage. Um,
Skies finally falling. Always knew it would.
no, it's one of those things where I think it's one of those things where you get a really really great show, or a really great movie, something that's just excellent. The writing is amazing, and the acting is amazing. Everything about it is just amazing. I mean, you watch it, and that is such a high bar, and everything else you watch, and you're just like, it's not as good. I want it to be good.
So
But it might be just different.
It
my
might be different, but
my personal opinion is that one reason why anime is so great
mm-hmm,
is because anime is oftentimes low budget,
mm-hmm,
oftentimes like produced by small groups of people, like coming from mangas that were maybe a single person made the entire manga. And so anime is more of an indie thing, and thus has more of it. It ends up being more creative and more
mm-hmm,
interesting a lot of the time, because
mm-hmm,
we will get individuals making stuff on their own that they like. If it were a big company, that person's ideas would never get through so unfiltered. And
mm-hmm,
so
Right.
anime can produce such interesting results. It's the indie anything indie can produce such interesting results because you don't have a team of people being like, no, no, let us not do that thing. It is all this creative influence from individuals, and hopefully, ideally, not too much of that is lost when the manga is converted to an anime and the team grows.
mm-hmm,
I do understand what Jake's saying in the sense that I feel like some things don't get filtered that should have been filtered.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's why you can't just go on and watch every single anime A to Z because it's like
Yeah.
there's so much that's
There's
like, oh god, no.
it's yeah.
Ugh.
You I mean, you really want the I mean, ideally you want to have a big long list of all of the best things, and you can watch only those forever. But there's just
But
so
that
much of
makes
it.
sense. Story. Like I hate when things jump around and it makes
Yeah.
no sense. And like
There's also an element of people creating this stuff for the first time
Mm-hmm.
will tend people creating stuff they like for the first time will tend to replicate the stuff they enjoyed without knowing why they enjoyed it. So
right.
Yeah.
everyone's first project is going to be terrible. It's
Mm-hmm.
just gonna that just happens
Yeah.
because the first time you do it, you're just replicating stuff and you don't realize the reasons for things. You don't necessarily really realize that the reason you're putting a white spot there is because it is hard light.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize that the reason the line goes that way rather than that way is because of the the perspective. You're using 2-point or 3-point or what
Yeah.
have you.
Yeah.
And so
No,
inevitably a lot of first time narratives and creations end up being inconsistent in weird ways because the creator did not, the first time they created something, understand the rules they were creating it by.
yeah, no, and I mean, absolutely, and this is like, this is the a classic thing in art. This is a classic thing in writing. Is people will know they love something, but they won't understand why they love it or why it is effective. So like the like killing a character, and that's sad, and it like, you know, they watch a show and one of the characters dies at the end and it just crushes them. And they think, wow, you know.
But you can kill a character and it can be meaningless.
Oh yeah.
So kind of like Buffy when the mom dies, like
Right.
you're like, wait, what?
Spoilers.
Why?
Yeah.
Like that was crushed.
And it's not the fact, like the payoff moment. That's not the important part. The important stuff is everything that leads up to it. You know, you have to build the thing. This is why like things like character motivation are important, because that carries weight and you see it throughout the story and you see them work for a goal. And when a conflict happens, you have all of their stuff that's happened throughout the story to back it up, and it makes it feel heavy. It gives it weight. This is why I think one of the best moments in cinema history is in Star Wars Return of the Jedi, when Luke has the final confrontation with Darth Vader, and it's just because this is three movies building up to this, and it is this good versus evil thing, and it's black silhouettes on a white background, and the music is great, and it's just like everything's great about it, and that is 3 movies of build to that scene where this final confrontation happened, and he starts off and he meets him and he fails and he kills Obi-Wan, and spoilers for Star Wars. And all that happens in the last scene where he faces Darth Vader. It's not because that scene was shot well. It was shot well, but it's because everything that led up to it, you know, was supporting it. You know, you have to build out the foundation of anything like that. If you're gonna kill a character, it has to be, you know, they can't just be a person. Like you have to make that important.
This is also why by the second half of A Place Further Than the Universe, like the audience doesn't feel hugely connected to the characters during the emotional scenes because they keep using them, but they haven't given enough weight to them to justify so many iterations of that scene, and the scenes do end up kind of running together and feeling similar between emotional moment to emotional moment.
Well, and
A silent voice is a good example of doing this a lot and still having weight to it.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. I think with the the emotional scenes in A Place Further Than the Universe, they have a lot of crying scenes, a lot of scenes where it just ends with people crying, and they're crying because they're happy because they're friends, or they're crying because, you know, they've come to a realization about something, or, you know, whatever. And you know, each episode is kind of self-contained in the latter half of the show. So it's about, oh, well, this time they, you know, this character's having trouble with her friends that are not really her friends, they're her old sports members, and oh, they're actually really good friends. And this person's having trouble with coping with the death of her mother, and her coming to terms with this person that was there, and you know, they're just individual episodes. You know, it's not, and they're not really backed by, you know, they don't have a lot of substance behind each one of those things, because like the sports friends thing, maybe you could say it was kind of foreshadowed earlier on when she's got,
I mean,
okay, so this was also a manga, right? So who knows? We're not talking about the manga. Probably the manga had all kinds of you know, wonderful backing for these pieces of conflict.
If we don't have someone who knows enough about the manga to suggest how the manga may have influenced the anime, or how the narrative may have changed between the two, and how the story may have been something else that was altered, then it's not really worth discussing the manga.
Mm-hmm.
It's
We
fair.
really need, yeah, we need the ability to draw insight from it, to try to figure things out because of it, and we just don't. None of us have looked at the manga.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But no, on the positive notes, again, I thought, aside from the hard light, I thought the art was really good. I thought the music was really good.
Yeah.
The intro was good. I did skip it the vast majority of the time because we were watching it on Crunchyroll and there were ads. There were so many ads. So we just
Also,
generally
the
skip it.
ads, you can't pause during ads on Crunchyroll.
You can't, and
I
they're
don't.
very,
I
very
pay
loud.
for Crunchyroll,
I
so I
would pay
don't
for
know.
Crunchyroll if they weren't a terrible service.
I think they're wonderful.
I don't like them. I can't modify video speed. I can't pause ads. I can't, like, they make the video hard to use.
Well, it's not owned by the people who started it anyway. It's owned by NBC now, I guess.
Ooh,
Somebody
Yeah.
bought it. I think
It's
NBC bought it. I know.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, my issue with
They
Crunchyroll is that they perpetuate an image of if you support Crunchyroll, you're supporting the anime industry, but I view Crunchyroll as providing bad service
mhm.
and
I,
not
I
actually helping. I think they're stagnating the anime industry by providing, they're filling the gap, but they're not innovating or improving or bettering. They're providing bad service in a gap in an area where they're keeping other people from getting in there
I
without helping.
disagree. I disagree because I feel like so much anime is accessible on Crunchyroll that it does give you an in. But if you're not ready to read subtitles, then yeah, they're not innovative in that way. Or in, the
Also,
other
video
ways,
speed.
like being able
Can't
to
change.
access and
Can't change video speed.
that's your thing. That's
That
a you thing.
that is not a me thing. YouTube allows changing of video speeds. It's actually becoming a more common thing. A lot more people are altering the speeds at which they play videos.
I'd like the
YouTube allows it.
science behind that. Like, I'd like to see, like, if we pick up that information as quick. I just think that's interesting.
It depends on what you're watching. I sometimes slow down the video speed. I've slowed it down to below 100% before, but video speed aside, it's yeah.
I do think
Crunchyroll's
that Crunchyroll could certainly use competition because they
I
are
agree.
kind of the only thing out there right now with respect to just like anime.
Yeah.
I think that would be healthy for
And
them.
there's not enough anime on, like, Netflix or any of those sites.
It's true.
Hulu has a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Netflix has a little bit. It's not.
Crunchyroll.
Funimation tried.
I'd also like Crunchyroll more if they tried harder to get dubs.
Mhm.
I think,
I
yeah,
agree.
because like dubs just make anime more accessible.
But
I don't like the liberties that dubs take, though. Because, like,
well,
some of it gets to me, because sometimes it can change the whole story.
It's fair. Admittedly, I think this anime was a good example of subtitles not being able to convey the full context. There were a lot of moments where I was like, what's happening? What are these characters actually meaning by this? Because the sub isn't translated to English in a way that
makes any
makes
sense.
sense, like culturally or something. It's hard to tell. I don't know if it's bad writing, bad translation, or just like the style, just like it's written in a certain style that's hard to translate.
That's
And
fair.
if you look at Steins Gate, the references that they make the references they make change in the dub to references that an American audience would understand, whereas in the sub, supposedly, the references are Japanese specific references that wouldn't be understood by an American audience. So that is an example of they change things, but it's important because I wouldn't understand if they named off Japanese figures. If
That
they were
makes
like,
sense.
sorry, it sounds like you were trying to say something, Moon.
Oh no, no, I was not. I was trying to fix the side of my mustache, as per usual.
Yeah, fix the side of my lip.
Oh.
I know I have a sore.
So, other than that, yeah, I don't know if I have too much else to say about this particular
Laptop.
show.
What do you think about the intro, the endings?
Well, we could talk about the laptop thing.
Oh yeah, that.
That
Mhm.
so that I think that was the only moment that really didn't land with me. Everything else I was just like I was not thrilled about, but I was fine with. The laptop thing at the end, it was just weird. Like it just came across to me as weird.
It didn't seem like it was very justified either.
Yeah, well,
It seemed like a big security loophole.
yeah. Also, she's horrible. Her
Yes.
mother's horrible at
Just like
creating passwords. It was a 4-digit password that's her daughter's birthday.
it's
Like,
her.
not even the year. It's not. It's a 4-digit. It's like a month and a day. What an awful password. But
Yeah, don't make your password a date or a name.
no.
Just don't do that.
Well,
Just
and
take that idea and throw it out the window.
but
Out of there.
the thing with the emails, like I get what they were doing. There were a bunch of weird things in that. So this thing where she opens the laptop and it syncs and she starts getting all of the emails that she sent her mother over the last, I don't know, how was it, 5 years, I think. But she receives all these 1,000 something emails that she gets over that she had sent to her mother.
We do learn something important about the fiction of the universe though during this segment. We learn this essential element that is they have amazing spam filters in this universe.
Oh yeah, no, and that was another thing is literally the only emails she got were just from her daughter, just
Incredible.
that, not a single piece of spam. I don't know if
wish
you've
we had
checked
that
your email
technology
recently.
today.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a weird. It was just a weird way to do it. Like I get it, but your mic is muted, Helen, or unless you're talking to somebody
I
else.
was talking to my husband.
That makes sense.
I have to use the restroom, so I was gonna let him know for a minute.
Yeah, lovely.
I'll be right
I'd
back.
love to hear Tro's opinion.
He would love to hear your opinion.
But yes, I thought that was strange. And then there was the whole thing about how, what was it? Her mother had one
Unfinished
short,
email.
I mean, it was finished. It was just not sent. One short unsent email
You don't
that she just
you don't
like
save
she said like
a
2
draft
sentences.
of an email. You don't save a draft of an email if it's finished.
It was two.
It was not something you do.
It was 2 sentences and a picture, and then it was finished. And she was like, it was saved and unsent, and it was like, why didn't that get sent? She but also, when did that happen? Because there was this. Was it? The whole thing, like she was freezing to death, and she saw the aurora. Or I don't know. I guess it wasn't the freezing to
She didn't have
death
her laptop.
thing.
Her laptop was in the cave.
She decided she wasn't going to send it yet. Maybe she thought of something else she was going to add. Saved it.
She just had beautiful things on her mind when she froze. It's still separate from the beautiful's email.
So that part, I don't know. It landed in a weird way for me that I just had trouble taking it seriously.
I agree. I think the IT kind of aspect of it, the looking at it from a perspective of this is a terrible password, this is an incredible spam filter, this doesn't feel like something that could ever happen. I mean, a spam filter that good couldn't exist. So made it feel disingenuous.
It's incredibly nitpicky and weird.
It is, but
the
they
way
chose to bring out computers.
The way that it was delivered, the way that it happened, it didn't land with me. Getting in the spam filter and stuff, like, I get it. They're not gonna have a spam.
You don't
filter.
leave a half-composed email like.
Troa, tell us what you think. What did you think about Place for Them in the Universe? Oh, you're muted.
How about that? Is that better?
You're good.
Okay. I liked it. I thought it was cute. It was pretty fun. I agree with the email thing. You don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of a falter or two.
Yeah. There's a couple moments like that, but
overall, I liked it. Though,
overall, I thought it was alright. Like, and so this is I think where Bad and I kind of diverge a little bit, and that's that. I thought it was all right. You know, yeah, it was all right. It was kind of cute. The first bit was more interesting than the second bit.
I would say it was kind of meh. I would say it was unsuccessful. I think it attempted to. What did it attempt to do? What was its goal? I don't know. I think its goal had to do with the emotional moments, and I feel that the emotional moments, about halfway and beyond, didn't have the weight for it to be successful at what it was aiming to achieve. Its strongest arc was most assuredly the first arc. Um, and I think that they relied too heavily on cutesy characters.
I think they try. I think one of the things they relied too heavily on was just characters crying. That happened a lot, and it after there. I think there was probably like the third or fourth or fifth time people were bawling. I was like, man, people cry here. I mean, again, they're all 16, I guess. So that's fair.
This is the thing, right? Like, if there are cute, adorable characters in something, drawn in a cute, adorable style, doing cute things, and breaking into tears, and the narrative feels weak, then it feels like they're relying on cutesy characters and that they're using that as a crutch for their writing.
And that's how I felt on the last thing with the computer, and she was crying in the room, and then it goes outside the room, and the three of them are sitting at the door all bawling, and I was like,
here's the
thing. Feels like that was like a cheap move to try to heighten the emotional impact of it there. Like they're all crying.
If we had conflicting motivations and a really interesting story, if we could get engaged, then they could do all the same things, but it wouldn't feel that way. It wouldn't feel bad. It's just when the narrative and the writing goodbye.
He got 2 words in.
Yeah. When the narrative and the writing kind of lags behind in that way, it makes a lot of other things feel inconsistent. You can get away with failing at 90% of stuff. If you succeed pretty well at 10%, then you're gonna have a good, possibly above average, possibly quite memorable cult classic kind of thing. Like you can make good stuff off of 10% of it being good.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But yeah. So who would I pitch this to? People that like cute slice of life stories, probably. It's not a stressful show. Say what?
It's the first half.
The first half. I mean, it's like, again, this was not a show that I was like horribly offended by.
No.
It was like how I feel about it was, it's all right. The first half was kind of fun. The second half was snowcats are really cool vehicles. Is one of the things I got out of it. They're like these giant, and they have beds and shit. That's great. That's cool. I want one of those. Very weird. Purpose built. I would never use it, but
you wouldn't drive it to work.
I wouldn't drive it to work. I would totally drive it to work. Would
just tear up the roads.
Days. But you know, there's I think there are fun elements in it. I think, you know, I think if you're interested in Antarctica, I think that's if you are a person that is interested and you like anime and you like, you know, slice of lifey stuff, you also are interested in Antarctica. Yeah, watch it. You get to see a boat. You get to see an icebreaker boat. I actually will say this. I think I have a slightly better understanding of how an icebreaker ship works, because I've seen pictures of like icebreaker ships in like ice, and I've been like, oh, I guess they just run through the ice. And you know, when after watching the show, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. I guess I kind of understand how icebreaker boats work, because this doesn't make sense. They're just, yeah. So that was cool. There's a couple of little weird sciencey things in there that were kind of fun. So if you're interested in that, I think it's best. I was gonna say best girl. Is it?
You're gonna choose the stuffed penguin, aren't you?
No.
I liked the stuffed penguin.
The stuffed penguin? That is pretty good. The stuffed penguin is pretty good. Pingu.
Bingo.
You know, I don't know actually. Nothing jumps to mind.
I would like to have an honorable mention for Best Girl from a different show.
I don't know if you could do that, but okay.
So, I would like to nominate the Forest Witch from the Finnish The Ashlad movie.
That's not even an anime.
That is not an anime.
That is
But there's a forest witch
that is,
in the Ashland, and her nose is like that long, and I think that she's Best Girl.
What? No.
Yeah. What?
No.
Yes. If you saw her, you'd understand.
I'll tell you what.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll think
If
about it.
you were me, you would do the things that I do.
That's very true. I think we'll have to call a meeting about it, but for now we're going to disqualify Norwegian fantasy films from any anime awards that we're having in the future. We can have a meeting about it, but
Yes.
I
now,
would then like
tentatively.
to abstain. I abstain.
Mm-hmm.
I abstain.
I think the stuffed penguin is a pretty good candidate for best girl.
Yeah.
There's also a whale.
There is a whale. You don't get very close to it though.
We see a shot of it.
Is there a bear? There's not a bear.
There's not a bear. I wanted a bear. If there were a bear, I would vote for the bear.
Oh, I'm gonna say there were several points during this anime that Bad and I stopped and watched videos of polar bears and seals,
walruses.
Walruses are terrifying, by the way.
Walruses.
If you're not
are
aware of that,
terrifying.
if you're not aware that walruses are maybe one of the most horrible creatures to walk the earth or flop over the earth,
To flop the earth, yes.
they defend themselves with a wall of blubber.
Yeah, no, literally, they're like, a bear's coming, quickly, form the blubber wall.
And that's what they do. And the bear's like, ah, fuck, what do I do?
Bear's like, no, there's too much blubber,
much
I
blubber
can't, I
here."
must never get around. Animals in Antarctica are great. Admittedly, walruses, I think, are the North Pole, and polar bears are the North Pole. I think Antarctica
yeah,
only
that
has
is true.
penguins and seals.
Mhm.
Seals, admittedly, pretty scary. I think if I were roaming the Antarctic shore on my own, I'd be worried about a seal jumping me.
Mm-hmm. No, to be sure.
A crab eater seal.
Getting some of that tasty man flesh. Don't want that. Poor penguins. Poor penguins getting nommed by seals.
Penguin.
They have killer whales down there.
That's fair. Killer whales are awesome, though. And they're also not whales.
That's fair.
If I were to name an animal, I would most assuredly create a biased name like that by putting killer in the name and naming it a whale when it wasn't a whale or some similar thing. Like I pick like a badger and I'd be like it's a killer bear, but it's actually just a badger. Yeah. I think that's a good way to go about naming wildlife.
That's how I would name wildlife if I was a naturalist. And around in the 1800s. But yeah, so yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all we got for A Place Within the Universe. I mean, it's also a very simple story. You know, a bunch of girls want to go to the Arctic. They get on a boat. They go to the Arctic. Some of them have personal problems. There's not a whole lot to say about it. We might sound like, well, I may sound like I've been bad-mouthing it. I don't think it's an awful show. I think it's okay. I think I wouldn't give it a number rating because I don't believe in number ratings, but it's all right. Is it worth a watch if you like the Arctic? Yeah, maybe. You know, it's kind of cool. There's snowcats, and you know, there's some fun stuff in it. Also, the first half is kind of fun, and you want them to go to Antarctica, and you know,
My opinion. You know what, Hallen? You go first. Why don't you state your opinion, and then I will finish with my opinion, so that people can clobber me down and be like, "Wrong! Don't believe that."
No. Anyway, I agree with Moon. No, Bear.
Moon,
Bear?
please.
Moon.
Moon Bear.
Moon Bear. I am the Moon Bear.
Just from Pokemon. Anyway, no, I really enjoyed the slice of life feel to it. I think that anyone who doesn't mind sitting through that kind of thing would really enjoy it. It does have its inspirational moment. Yeah, that's I don't know.
You do make a valid point with the slice of life feel that I think a big element in the slice of life genre. Am I echoing at all, by the way?
I'm not getting it.
I'm not getting it either.
Cool. I wanted to make sure.
I am
The
not
a big
watching your stream
problem, a big problem in the wait. I'm not streaming though. You're streaming. Okay, I don't know. It's probably fine. It's probably fine. Anyways, a big element in the slice of life genre is a sense of the story being relaxing, of there not being a lot of tension, of it being a place where you can just kind of sit and watch a slice of life and like, I don't know, do whatever you do to wind down at the end of the day and
Yeah.
be relaxed. And so in that respect, it is a relaxing narrative. There isn't a lot of tension. There's not a lot of high stakes. Um, I would say I might mention it to someone. Be like, do you like Antarctica? There's this story. It's not terribly interesting in my opinion, but it might be worth watching. I would argue that it's not necessarily something worth recommending because there's a lot of anime out there, and I would say that the value that it has, unless you are specifically into Antarctica, is not great enough to justify giving up that time that you could be spending looking for other good anime. There's an opportunity cost. If you spend how many episodes is it?
13.
13 episodes, 24 minutes. That's 13 episodes you're not watching of other animes that could potentially be good. And
So
I would rather dig for gold than mine.
So there's an interesting.
Whatever
I feel like in there's an interesting idea, and that's that slice of life anime might not be a thing that people watch because they want to watch a story. In the same way that I would think certain like video games are not, in a lot of ways, technically games. So like building games where you just like build stuff and there's no there's no failure state and there's no like goal, you just build stuff.
That's
Is
something
that,
that gets me. I'm just like, why? I just need a failure state.
Yeah, no, and so it's you're not playing that because you want to win. You're playing that because you just want to play it. You want to build stuff, and maybe slice of life, and there's certainly slice of life's a good genre for this. But maybe people just want to watch an anime so that they can watch anime characters, and there can be a boat, and they can have something going on, and it's not really about needing there to be a goal in the future. Like they don't want to hear a story necessarily, because that's one of the things that generally when I'm talking about stuff, I'm talking about storytelling.
That is what
I'm
I feel
not
the
saying
purpose
that,
of anime rom-coms do that 100%. You get past the initial arc that is the characters getting together, and then it is just nothing but that. It is just no conflict. They're just
and if that's what you want to watch that for, that's totally fine. So when I approach it, I'm really approaching it from a perspective of storytelling and how that's done well and how you do that. But if you just want to watch a show that just, like if you want to watch, a slice of life thing or something that doesn't really have much narrative in it, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. That's not what I want to watch. But I'm not saying that it is necessarily a bad thing to make a show that doesn't have like a story to it.
okay. Before I say my thing, Helen, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted. Muted.
I was writing. Sorry.
No worries.
No, I was gonna say like what we were gonna watch next.
Oh yeah, that's a very good question.
Okay. Before that, I would like to hit on this point that you made that I think is valid. That from a narrative perspective, it It may not be incredibly interesting. It may not be perfectly constructed, but it is still, people will still enjoy it. It is still okay to enjoy it.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
if you if you watch the sunset, right? The sky is not an interesting narrative. It's gonna rise in the morning, it's gonna set in the night, what's gonna happen. There's no interesting twists and turns in watching the sunrise, but people still like watching the sunrise. There's still like
Mhm.
something potentially to be gained by looking at the sunset or sunrise.
Well, and so maybe a better parallel to that would be something like what I would call dumb action movies, or action movies that have virtually no story to them. I'm not into action movies that have no story to them. I think action can be made far more interesting by having story. Um, there are action movies that are incredibly
see-
successful that have
you
virtually
see,
no story to them.
I don't like this parallel because I just don't like dumb action movies at
Well, no,
all.
here's the thing. I don't like dumb
What do
action
you
movies
consider
either.
dumb action movies? Like,
So-
I don't know.
Any
So-
Die Hard movie made after 1999. They're like the Die. I think the Die Hard movies are mostly just endless action scenes.
So,
To be fair, I've only seen a
back
couple of the
to
extra ones.
anime. What are we watching next week?
Oh, change back, huh? All right.
Haha.
We
Shoes
are
on the other foot now.
well. Okay, so
And it went quiet.
we'll table the discussion of action movies later.
Next week's
later.
podcast, we'll be discussing the Die Hard movies. Chronological order we'll be going through.
Okay, just replace Die Hard with Dragon Ball Z.
I can't.
Okay,
I get why people like it. I just
Yeah.
can't watch it.
exactly. But
Have
we
you-
will. Okay, we're gonna talk about what we're gonna watch next week because we are running out of time. Mostly
What did
thanks
we
to the.
decide on?
Well, so I think our discussion we were talking about either. Did we say Ninja Girl and Samurai Master, or
Sure.
okay? So
Yes.
yes, we have decided we are
First
next week.
season.
We're going to watch the first season of Ninja Girl and Samurai Master. It is a short form anime. Each episode is about 3 minutes long. So I don't know
I'll
how many.
keep my eye out for Hard Light.
Keep your eye out for Hard Light. Yeah, do that. I think it's incredibly clever, incredibly funny, snappy, witty humor, good stuff. We're gonna watch the first season of it, and we'll discuss it next week. That's gonna be Saturday, the 29th of December, the last show of 2019. That'll be it. That'll be the last one. That'll be after the new year, I think. Or no,
Sad.
what am I talking about? I'm very tired from my midnight shifts.
Yay! Ninja Girl Samurai Master. Goodbye forever. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Have a lovely night. See you next week. Bye.
That's Sam.